So, it looks like we weren't kidding when we said we were gonna piss off JoJo fans with our time benders who can beat Dio Brando's list. With Eyes of Heaven released, everyone's singing the praises of the Noble One and trying to erase the existence of our previous lineup of would-be vampire slayers using Dio's new World Over Heaven stand. Which means that while Kura's still pulling knives out of himself, I'll be assembling a new list of vampire slayers to defeat Dio's new reality-bending powers. I'm A.B.I, and these are the top 6 characters who could defeat Dio Over Heaven. So, a new Dio means a new set of guidelines that we'll be using to determine whether or not a character can withstand, tolerate, or defeat the World Over Heaven's new powers. Everything we have here is mostly based on what is shown to us in Eyes of Heaven, which is honestly extremely vague, so we'll have to take a few liberties. Here are the new rules. Dio's vampire weaknesses no longer apply. We'll just safely assume that Dio used his power to overwrite his own weaknesses, so he no longer has to worry about sunlight. World Over Heaven's fists can overwrite reality with 2 known uses. He can erase existence, and he can undo his own injuries. However, Dio is not creative. I mean, if you had an omnipotent power that worked every single time, why would you ever need to find more creative ways to use it? Disabling Dio's hands disables his ability. Dio can still be destroyed by physical trauma as long as he doesn't heal it back. World Over Heaven can still stop time to an undetermined limit. World Over Heaven cannot use its overwrite ability and time stop at the same time because he never does this in-game. And we totally forgot to factor this in last time, but stands can only be seen by other stand users or people with similar powers. And lastly, before we start, spoiler warnings for the following things. You didn't think that a fancy new power was going to get you away from Nagato, did you, Dio? It seems a lot of people didn't agree with Nagato topping the last list, so I'd like to take this opportunity to reiterate that Nagato's powers are kind of bullshit. Nagato is able to detect any kind of variance from what's considered normal for this world's data, and she is more than capable of fixing any kind of deviant code, whether that means frozen time, rewriting reality, or making swole phantoms come out of your body. Dio's World Over Heaven has the power to rewrite anything into reality, and thus would technically be on par with Nagato's ability to recode universal data. While it's up to debate which ability gets to overwrite the other, the one thing Dio can't overwrite is his range. World Over Heaven can overwrite anything it touches with its fists, which means it has an effective range of about 2 meters. Nagato can rewrite anything, anywhere, anytime. She could recreate the world overnight and you'd never even know. And as with the previous countdown, Nagato could even rewrite data from the past, which would retroactively prevent Dio from ever achieving heaven, or living past Phantom Blood, or becoming a vampire at all. Our last countdown included a lot of characters who have no way of interacting with stands, and many of you were quick to point that out. So in respect to that line of logic, let's assume that personas are basically the same as stands and put Yu Narukami up to the plate. Yu Narukami is the wildcard persona user who saved the town of Yasuinaba more than once. He doesn't just have one persona, his personality is so multifaceted that he can manifest many different personas from his heart, each with different powers, specialties, and resistances. Narukami is the only character on this list who has an answer for World Over Heaven, but would struggle against the world normally. Feasibly, his only counter to the world's time stop is to change to a persona that renders him immune to physical damage, and would force Dio to attempt using World Over Heaven's new ability instead. But even a physical immune persona can have its defenses rewritten if struck by World Over Heaven's fists, so to deal with this power, Narukami breaks out his trump card, the persona Izanagi no Okami. With Izanagi no Okami, Narukami can use Myriad Truths, an attack that destroys all lies. If you recall, Dio himself mentions that he comes from an alternate timeline, and that a main timeline exists. If you consider the main timeline to be the truth, then the existence of Dio Over Heaven can be considered a lie, and any truth written by a lie is still a lie, so Dio Over Heaven would no doubt perish to the power of Myriad Truths. And how appropriate is it that World Over Heaven is trumped by a persona with the same tarot? Now, we have a lot of challengers so far who can avoid being written out of existence, but how about someone it just doesn't work on? How do you come back from being erased from any and all timelines and memories? Simple. you press the load button. Kara is, to put it simply, the violent alter ego of the playable character in Undertale. Both Kara and the player character possess the power of determination, which sounds like motivational schlock because they're both human and they have hearts, but it's also literally a power that lets them come back to life no matter what. The player's ability to reload and continue after dying is made into Kara's immortality. Even if you erase Kara from existence, determination will bring Kara back. There are 2 bosses who tried. And even if you modify your game data out of the genocide path, Kara is still there, as long as there's a fight button. So Kara will keep trying, and trying, and trying, and trying. Maybe it'll take 1,000,000 tries, maybe more, but it will happen. And it will only end when Dio eventually gets fed up trying to kill Kara over and over again. You can't kill determination. And if you thought Kara's just a kid with a knife and has no way of actually destroying Dio, that's a lot of damage. But if you thought determination was ridiculous, then you'd better grit those teeth. Simone rose from cowardly underground scavenger to intergalactic hero because of the guidance of his friends, and because of an all-encompassing superpower called spiral energy. In a way, it's like determination because it stems from bravery, courage, and never giving up. But it's also like the Force, in which it gives you powers that make no sense. Spiral energy is capable of shrugging off fatal injuries, turning everything you touch into exponentially larger robots, and willing yourself to exist in a reality where you shouldn't. Even the anti-spiral, who was uniquely designed to be the entropy of all sentient life, cannot stop spiral energy. Spiral energy is the pure power of human thought and evolution, and Simone is its champion. Dio may have achieved heaven, but Simone's drill pierces the heavens. And don't start with the whole stands can only be seen by other stand users thing, because with spiral energy, Simone can see the invisible and do the impossible. So it's only a matter of time before Dio gets torn apart by a Giga Drill Breaker. Man, Dio seems to have no luck with dudes named Simon, although you might find this next entry difficult to swallow. Okay, I'm not trolling, just, I swear, give me a second. Kirby is an intergalactic marshmallow who can eat anything and copy powers. Canonically, the inside of Kirby's mouth is a pocket dimension that maintains the memories of everything Kirby has ever devoured. At his strongest, he can turn into Hypernova Kirby, which is capable of devouring everything from enemies to giant bosses to even pure energy. Okay? Kirby counters Dio's time stop the same way Narukami does, because he can simply access his rock form that renders him immune to all physical harm. So since throwing knives are not going to work, Dio has to get in close to use World Over Heaven's ability. But I can't think of a single thing that's gotten within 2 meters of Kirby that didn't get immediately swallowed, so either Dio or his stand, or likely both of them, are now imprisoned in Kirby's stomach dimension. Now, granted, World Over Heaven probably grants Dio the ability to traverse different dimensions, which is probably how he started hopping the JoJo timeline in the first place, so it's safe to assume that Dio can escape. But it's already too late, because Kirby maintains the memory of devouring Dio, and now he can ascend into Kirby Over Heaven. So now imagine Dio having to face not just his own powers, which he canonically has problems with, but every other power imaginable. Kirby Over Heaven. Now, before we reach number 1, I'm going to take a second to talk about an honorable mention because you guys are going to talk about it in the comments anyway. Could Saitama defeat Dio Over Heaven? When it comes to Dio's time stop, Saitama is probably a match for it because it's basically impossible to hurt Saitama through physical means. And because Dio can't overwrite reality while using time stop, Dio has to hit Saitama with a punch in real time, which is impossible because Saitama's reaction speed is ridiculous. But let's assume World Over Heaven does hit Saitama, either because he can't see stands, or in the more likely case that Saitama just lets himself get hit out of boredom. Would World Over Heaven be able to overwrite Saitama? Logically, yes, because Saitama has yet to demonstrate any ability to resist conceptual powers. But Saitama is also about being physically impossible and defying all logic. Things that should destroy him just don't. So is it possible that Saitama can just anchor himself to reality with sheer willpower? Sadly, we can't officially put him on the list just because it's impossible to quantify what Saitama can and cannot do. So, Nagato outclasses Dio, Narukami counters him, Kara outlasts him, Simone overcomes him, and Kirby matches him. But are you ready for a character who completely and utterly destroys World Over Heaven? Yukari Yakumo, the yokai of boundaries, is among the most powerful characters in Toho. Hell, in basically everything. She has the power to manipulate boundaries, which is a godly open-ended power. To put it relatively simply, think about the universe in terms of boundaries. Everything is separated by a boundary of some kind, or else everything would exist as the same being or concept. Yukari can place or remove boundaries of any kind, even conceptual boundaries. Canonically, she once removed the boundary between truth and illusion and walked onto the moon through its reflection in a lake. So yeah, boundaries are pretty fucked up. So imagine, if you will, that Yukari removes the boundary between reality and fiction. Now everything is real and nothing is real, so World Over Heaven's fists do nothing. Time stop? Remove the boundary between frozen time and moving time, so now all time is frozen and all frozen time moves. And if the world tries to muda her, she'll place a boundary between the world and Dio, so that they are now completely separate entities. Oh, but Yukari can't see. Nope. Remove the boundary between the visible and the unseen. And once Yukari has screwed with enough boundaries to render Dio helpless, he still has to deal with this. And that's our list of top 6 characters who can defeat Dio Over Heaven. These lists are really just for fun, and Eyes of Heaven is full of all sorts of plot holes, but I do enjoy seeing what you guys have to say about this, so feel free to talk about this or any other matchups in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos and to share this video with your friends. I'm A.B.I, and I will see you next time.